Hi there. You've reached Studio C. This is Anissa with the Communication Studio. I'm going to be interviewing 10 people that I either met on social media and got to know there, or maybe met them in person once and got to know them through social media. A little bit of both. Anyway, Studio C is going to be interviewing 10 people who are sharing their message with the world and assisting individuals and groups to get their message out and help other people. I'm also going to go back and re-interview them later and see where they're at in 6 to 10 months. So here's our next interview on Studio C. Our hashtag is hashtag Studio C.
So today we are going to interview Tana Plewes. She works with, well, her company is called Possibility.ca, and she works with Michael Gerber in, I guess we call it building the dreaming room. What do we call it?
Yeah, the dreaming room for entrepreneurs.
Excellent. So I sent Tana some questions ahead of time, and I keep the studio pretty very specific to the questions, and so we kind of stay on track. So while you're here, Tana's going to assist me in going through these questions, and I'm going to dig right into it. First of all, where are you from?
Oh, well, I actually am originally from Saskatchewan, and I live in Chilliwack. I've been hanging out at Cultus Lake all day.
Beautiful. I'm just in Abbotsford in the Fraser Valley, and we've had a gorgeous day here as well. We've had a pretty amazing weekend. We had smoke on the highway, which was a barbecue competition event at Let's Farms, and all sorts of other things. We had the 10th anniversary for the Abbotsford Farm Market, so I'm lucky enough to be able to walk down there on a Saturday morning. It's pretty awesome, and it's really great to see all sorts of people out there. So, first thing I'm going to ask you is, what are the 3 most important things that we should all know about you, Tana?
Well, let's see. For starters, I'm the founder and CEO of Possibility.ca, and we're actually Canada's first entrepreneurial leadership academy run exclusively by real entrepreneurs. I have a Master of Arts degree in leadership from Royal Roads University, and as you mentioned, I think the third thing would be that I'm a certified facilitator of Michael Gerber's Dreaming Room for Entrepreneurs. And I also represent Canada on Mr. Gerber's global leadership team.
Excellent. And I'm just going to let people know that we met through social media on LinkedIn, and Tana was looking for someone to assist her with a piece of software that both of us use called Fusionsoft, and we talked on the phone, and then eventually I would actually call her a friend now, and it hasn't been very, very long. I find that the people that find me on social media quite often have very similar values because we can kind of check each other out ahead of time, so I really appreciate that. So what is an entrepreneur in your opinion? It's a word that I think is being used a lot, and I think that everyone feels that being an entrepreneur is an option. I know in Training for LinkedIn, the new book that they just put out is called The Startup of You, really teaching people that their position, whether they are running their own business or running their position within their job, really is fully their responsibility. So I think it's something that's being rediscovered, and I think that you guys have really got a handle on how people can help manage that. So in your own words, what is an entrepreneur?
Oh, that is a big question, actually. I know most of us think of entrepreneurs as innovators and visionaries and these, larger-than-life game changers. But to me, they are an endangered species. Like, they're very, very critical. And we need to bring our population levels back up. And it's really a way of thinking and a way of looking at things, right? Entrepreneurs are masterful problem solvers, but what's different about them is they offer hope and possibility for the future, for a brighter future, because they're not doing it for a paycheck. They're not doing it for any other reason than whatever it is that they're in pursuit of is just really deeply rooted in who they are, and they're really driven by a purpose, and they're pulled by a vision. And so, I see them as it's something that we misinterpret. It's easy to get off course with the red herring, which is like power, money, status, and you know, the Michael Douglas character in Wall Street, right? And that's so not what an entrepreneur is to me. I'm interested in the ones that are out to shape social, environmental, and economic opportunities. They think differently. They make decisions differently. They're oriented towards effectiveness and long-term change. And so it's a way of being and a way of thinking, and it runs counter to what we're taught in school.
Excellent. I think there are some kids that have parents like me who have put them through kind of entrepreneurial programs, and so they are out there. Like Colin Sprague has High School Millionaire, and I see more and more of them popping up with the author of Back Pocket CEO Cameron. Just blanked out on his last name, but he's got a great TED Talk on kids becoming entrepreneurs. My next question is, if you were to pick one Michael Gerber book that everyone should read, what would it be? My experience, though, just before we get to that, is I used to actually give all of my coaching clients and business startup clients a copy of the original old little tiny E-Myth book, because it at least gave them the most basic system and processes to go through. And then I got to the point where I actually used E-Myth Mastery to set up an entire, $1 million business. It was on my own, and it was just amazing to have the system laid out for me, so I could just walk through it, because it was one of those things that just got thrown out. Here, you do this, you go build this business. And I knew that I could pick up one of Michael's books and he would walk me through it. So I kind of felt like I cheated. So in your opinion, what is the book that everybody should read?
Well, that is a really tough question, because he's written books for novices. He's written books for people that have a lot of experience, right? E-Myth Mastery is, that's not just for anyone to pick up. That's, I usually recommend that to people that have a lot more experience in business and want to use it in the way that you just described. So, I would have to go with the old, I've got a whole bookshelf over there of all kinds of, he has a vertical series that they're written specifically for real estate agents and physicians and, very specialized. But I'd have to say that last year was the 25th anniversary, the silver anniversary of E-Myth Revisited. And so I would have to pick that one, just because it's just recently been celebrated, and it doesn't matter. For that one, it really doesn't matter how much experience you have. It's like, oh, yes, I get this. I see that.
I think even my mom went and bought that. They run a small business from home, and she's hard to tell anything to. And I think that's the book that she actually picked up and read and enjoyed. So.
Yeah,
perfect
and
choice.
He's so pragmatic in how he distinguishes things. He's so practical, and it just makes sense. There's nothing, he doesn't talk about people's heads. He just really what matters on a day-to-day basis.
Which is leading up to our next question. And I actually had Tana come and audit one of my LinkedIn training courses, and I was quite terrified, because I know that she is amazing at these. And so I think I probably went and rewrote some of my material knowing that she was going to be in my class. So how do you feel about systems?
Well, when we get into systems now, that's where the real nerd in me comes out. To me, that's how I became, connected to Michael Gerber. So systems are an incredibly powerful, invisible force that few of us actually can see or understand. Yet they are literally the secret to entrepreneurs realizing their goals and dreams. They are everything. But I do feel that systems have been terribly misunderstood and even mishandled. So, and just to backtrack, I believe that we're all born with an innate ability to understand systems and have the capacity to become designers of our whole lives. And when I say systems, I'm talking like a holistic view, like an artist. An artist can't master, their work of art until they can see the whole system. right? There's a depth to mastery that people go to. And it doesn't matter what you're a master of, but if you really are interested in performance and high performance, those that stand apart, that it's like really clear to everyone, like, whoa, they really get it, it's because they see the whole system, not just this very simple cause and effect. And earlier when I said that I feel entrepreneurs are like an endangered species, it's because in school we have such an institutional approach to teaching and learning, and that I believe we diminish our natural abilities in that way. And, you know, if you think about it, look at all of the track record, with the academic track record of so many of the world's most well-known entrepreneurs, right?
I know my experience with my children was I had them in 2 different kinds of schools. I had one, and it's not to diminish one or the other, it's that I think also that each child has its own learning pattern and learning system that works for them. Yes. But we went from traditional, where I had one child who absolutely thrived in it, and it just crushed the other one, put them into an integrated, not fine arts, integrated art school where they used 30% more moving around and far more interactive learning. You know, like if you've got to write a song about the stamen of a flower, you're never going to forget all those words. But what really, really impressed me is across the board, I've never in any school I've ever been to, heard of, seen so many math awards, like national math awards that were awarded to our school of these children who were doing a lot more creative thinking. So I totally agree with you. I do think there is options within the school system now. We happen to live in School District 34, which is a pretty blessed place, though. So it's highly unusual. Yeah,
and you know, to be fair, the regular education system does work for some people. But for those that it doesn't work for, it doesn't work, you know. And one of my favorite TED Talks is Sir Ken Robinson, when he talks about education, and that, you know, really worth Googling. But you know, we're brought up in such a way that we're always trying to plan and predict and analyze the world, and in an attempt to rationalize or, you know, create a really structured approach to everything. And so, you know, we reduce everything to cause and effect, and we draw lines and boxes around everyone and everything, and, you know, from that linear approach. But systems is like a whole body learning, right? It's a full body experience and a knowing, and it can take longer. So it's more difficult. So I think it would be hard to integrate, but I think it's really important to have a choice.
Well, I think as with anything, nature and nurture, there's a bit of both always needed. So because I know with Possibility.ca, one of the major focus is Michael Gerber's Dreaming Room. What is and you know, what you always want to understand is what is the pain of the people that are coming in there into the Dreaming Room that this 12-week program will solve, or that they're looking. You know, it's not necessarily. Because I know I'm partway through the Dreaming Room, is I think that there's what we go into it with, and what I can see that it's from other people in the class as well, that it's not always the same expectation going in as what you're going to come out, and I have to say it's probably going to surpass expectation. So, but in general, now that I know you've had quite a few people come through, and you work with Michael one-on-one and get to hear what his results are, what is the pain of people who are looking for what's in the Dreaming Room and what it has to offer?
Well, I guess it depends. There's kind of 2 streams of people that come into the Dreaming Room. So one stream would be those that they're either self-employed or they're still in jobs, dreaming of having their own business. They may have thought about it for a long time. But wherever they are, they're kind of caught up in the hamster wheel of life. Just, you know, going, and they're busy, and they're running here and running there. You know, they're really not even present, and often not even present to their pain, because they're still thinking that, you know, I'm going to get it all done someday, or I'm going to win the lottery, or, you know, something miraculously is going to happen, and this is all going to be cleaned up. But they eventually start to see that wow, you know, I thought I was going to be done before. You know, it's not happening. So that's one stream. And the other stream is people that have businesses already, a lot more experience. They might have quite a substantial number of staff, and they are looking sort of at the culture of their organization and the performance and the morale and, you know, how people in the organization interact. And now, you know, they might have been really focused on systems and systematizing their business for a number of years, and now they're starting to see, well, you know, some of these systems maybe they're not really aligned with people. Like there's some people issues that we're dealing with. So that's another stream that come into the Dreaming Room as well. So they've definitely kind of hit a wall. They know they've hit a wall. Something's not working. They're not necessarily sure what it is, but at that point when you enter the Dreaming Room, you know, you're really committed to find out what that is and to transform it. Leave it behind.
Excellent. I know I'm experiencing some of that myself and seeing exactly that in other people. What is the biggest growth, like the before and after, that you've seen over the 12-week process of the Dreaming Room in a single business or individual?
I would say that's a really good question too, because although business and career is the focus of the Dreaming Room, business isn't necessarily where we see the growth initially. So that is a little counterintuitive too, but basically it's in the leadership of the entrepreneur. It's the entrepreneur that transforms. And in their change and what they're creating and the clarity and the confidence and the vision and that, you know, that full body commitment, because they've just been through something. Like they're not coming from an intellectual place. They're coming from their heart, and they're really passionate about what they're creating. And when they come out, or even partway through, like people start to notice, like, wow, you know, what's going on with this person? And it's quite compelling. And so by the time they get to the end, when they deliver a white paper, which is a presentation, you know, to their peers of what it is that they have created during this 12-week process. And what I've found is, even if someone was in a job and they had created something and they really had never worked in that area per se, but it's been a hobby or an interest or a passion of theirs all along, when you hear them speak at the end, it's really clear, like, wow, that person is a leader. You know, they fit there. That's a conversation that they can lead. And it's really quite inspiring to see people coming from that depth in themselves, and there's such a deep level of commitment and clarity. So
awesome.
Yeah,
awesome.
and
so where do you see that's really speaking to the business side? And do you, one of the things we talked about is seeing what the benefits is of how that transfers into home life and family life and how you're interacting with people around you. I know, like, for me, it's always been a challenge to, even though I have a lot of knowledge and I want to share it, but translating that into a business for me was a real challenge, and quite often I've given up on myself and gone back to working for someone else and sharing my gifts there, which I was really comfortable with doing, but there's a point where I was just so frustrated, and that was, I think that's hard on it was hard on my kids, because there's a certain amount of security with just mom going to a job. My parents are like, still, I think it's the first year, I'm 42, it's the first year they've said, they literally, in my birthday card, my parents write something in my birthday card every year, and they basically said, we fully support everything that you do, for the first time in my life, instead of, so when are you getting a job? You know, so it's amazing how it affects home life, your choices as to what you do in your professional career and stuff, especially when you're managing family. I'm in that sandwich generation, for example, where, you know, you've got kids and parents to deal with, and, you know, it's that funny point. So how do you feel that the Dreaming Room affects that part of life as well?
Well, I'll backtrack just a little, because I know that, you know, I said that initially it's not the business that you see the growth, right? It's the entrepreneur. But it's in the kind of growth that they experience that suddenly, you know, they are way more connected to their customers, their employees, their suppliers, their lenders. It's like something significant changes in the relationships and the dynamics between them. And so I would almost say even more so is that noticeable at home. Because let's face it, entrepreneurs tend to be results-oriented, high performers, you know, quite driven. In emotional intelligence, you know, they call it pace setters. And they are pace setters. They're on the leading edge of something. And so, and they also are courageous, right? They're creating something new. They're going this way when everyone else is going that way. And so they also have the courage to call bullshit when they hear it as well, right? and so, you know, there can be a little bit of an abrasion, or, you know, however you'd like to call it. So, you know, that level of creativity, passion, and tenacity is great for the business and great for what they're creating, but it can and often does undermine the relationships, whether that's at home, in the family, or team. Just because there's that, you know, they learn by doing. They learn by figuring it out for themselves. They don't learn it out of a book, right? And so when they encounter someone else who prefers to learn from a book or be shown, or, you know, more traditional approach to learning, it's kind of like a culture clash. And they don't necessarily, that's one of the things that I realized when I really got the whole language of systems, that was my intuition. That was a whole world that explains my performance that I had no language for. You know, I had to show you what I was going to do, not tell you what I was. If you're going to wait for me to tell you, we're going to be waiting a long time. And it isn't until, you know, really getting the language of systems that it's like, oh, I feel like, you know, I'm 50 and I'm just getting language now, right? But in the absence of that, there's conflict, there's frustration, there's someone that just jumps in, oh, let me do that, you know, that kind of thing. And that's really diminishing to the people around us. And so systems, when you go through the dreaming room and you really, it is like getting language for some parts of yourself that you could never explain, you couldn't articulate, and you're in a rush, so it's also kind of gives you the ability to slow down. And you realize that you can slow down, you can relax, you can take a breath, you can listen, and like really listen, and you're not going to get behind. You're not going to miss anything. If anything, that's how you're going to speed up. So it's very, very important.
Well, if you, I guess it took me 7 years to get through my Bachelor of Fine Arts, and it took me until I was 30 to realize I needed to go to university. So I'm a slow learner, but it took me that whole time to understand that visual communication was my gift, and then putting that into a system has been an even bigger challenge. And it took a lot of discipline, it took a lot of meditation, it took a lot of Anthony Robbins tapes. Is there a point where people need to realize that being an entrepreneur and not having success in certain areas, as far as business, because, you know, there's a difference between having a great idea, between having a gift and running a business. So is there a point we should stop dreaming about working for yourself and use your gift somewhere else, use them for someone else where they already have a system that you can be successful in?
Yeah, well, that's the $1 million question, isn't it? And really,
it really is.
yeah, and it, unfortunately, it is a question that really only the entrepreneur can answer for themselves. But you know, it's a fine line, because every truly innovative idea disrupts mainstream thinking. It disrupts the ordinary, right? So that something else can take hold and grow. And so that's no easy feat. That does take a huge level of a commitment. And that person if they really have an idea and they feel that it's innovative and it's like deeply rooted in them, they're going to be like, yeah, this is, we're talking obsessive compulsive disorder sort of, right? When you're really driven and you're going upstream. So one of the things, I used to, in a previous life, I was a certified able-bodied seaman. So I'm not certified anymore, but when you turn the ship's wheel, it takes a long, you can turn the wheel, that's fine, but it takes a long time for the hull of the ship to come about, right? And the same is true for business. So it does take, if it's in something that's innovative, if you're just like, oh, I'm going to do this and make money, well, that's not really entrepreneurial, that's something else. And you can do that quickly, but we're talking true entrepreneurial passion. And that can take quite a while to nurture and grow and evolve, and it takes the ability to engage those customers, the employees, the suppliers, and the lenders in the formulation and the creation of it, because you're not going to do it by yourself. Right. It's just not going to happen. And so if an entrepreneur is in tune with the people around them, the key influencers that will enable that business to emerge and grow, then there's some hope. But when you get someone that's got tunnel vision and we're doing it my way, and they haven't built perhaps feedback loops so that they get that insightful feedback and a different perspective from all of the key influencers that are essential to the growth of that business, then you're going to be making withdrawals, like Stephen Covey, the emotional bank account, and you have to make deposits. If you have enough deposits, you can make some withdrawals, you can make some mistakes, and people will forgive you, and it doesn't damage the relationship. But if you're,
I think the other key part of, because he's one of my favorite authors, is that a lot of people fail to do in life and in business is seek first to understand. And sometimes when you take the time to do that, you can find some of the answers before you have to turn the ship. So I totally agree. But have you had an experience where you've had to say to someone, you know what, you need to just go get a job while you work on building your system, and it's just time to stop the pain and build a system and do it part-time on your own while you're paying your bills and supporting your family, and not, it's great to be a dreamer, but at some point when you at least build some stability into what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, certainly it's not necessarily something that, well, for starters, the people that really don't want that feedback, they don't want to create those feedback loops and get that credible, that credible contribution to what they're building. They're not going to be in the dreaming room in the first place, right? You only go in there because you're committed to change something. So there's that. But also, those that come in with a high vision, no traction, up in the clouds kind of thinking, come down, and those that are too practical and too sensible are pushed up. And so, yeah, if you have no intention of learning how to be more effective in pursuing whatever your idea is, then giving up is absolutely a more logical and much less painful way to go, right? Because
I don't think so much giving up as working through what the problems are before you head back at it, or understand that maybe that isn't your strength, and let the ego stop talking and go with the heart. So
yeah, well, even I know in my journey, there's been many times where it's like, there's something I need to learn, and I have hopped in and out of corporate careers along the way, and to me, it's just a different way of learning, right? It doesn't matter. It's, some of the jobs that I've had, I've learned about contract law and, a lot of complex things. And what a great way what a great way to get the experience. Like, there's
Yeah.
certainly nothing wrong with it. And I've literally leaped in and out and go in and, because those are opportunities to learn.
Well, and I think that as well is while you're in those structured environments as an entrepreneur, you build your networks, you build your training, you build your opportunities as well for when you come out. But thank you so much for all you've had to offer today.
Thank you.
I hope that people understand the value of the Dreaming Room a little bit more and that you've been able to put words to it and explain it. I think you've done a very good job. So this is Anissa with StudioC, and if you want to see us next time, please subscribe to this Google Hangout, and you'll be made aware of when the next one. If you want to find Tana, you can find her at possibility.ca. I believe, do you have a newsletter or something people can sign up for?
Oh, you just froze. Yeah, there's some web forms on the website, and you can sign up for sure. And
Wonderful. If you want to find us, we are at www.communicationstudio.ca. You can find myself on YouTube at /Anissa Carruthers, and I look forward to the next people that we're going to interview. My goal is to interview 10 people and then also come back to them and interview them again later. So you will see Tana again later, I hope, and we will have some more information on the Dreaming Room. So thank you very much, and I'm going to sign off here, Tana, so you take care and have a good night.
You too. Thank you, Anissa.
Bye.
Bye.
Hi there. You've reached Studio C. This is Anissa with the Communication Studio. I'm going to be interviewing 10 people that I either met on social media and got to know there, or maybe met them in person once and got to know them through social media. A little bit of both. Anyway, Studio C is going to be interviewing 10 people who are sharing their message with the world and assisting individuals and groups to get their message out and help other people. I'm also going to go back and re-interview them later and see where they're at in 6 to 10 months. So here's our next interview on Studio C. Our hashtag is #StudioC.